I still remember the night vividly. I was walking back to the car with a friend from the Israeli embassy in Canberra. We just finished dinner. As we approached her vehicle, she suddenly crouched down and scanned underneath it. I asked her what she was doing. She simply looked up and said, "We are always at risk. Extremism never sleeps." Those words hit me then, and they've never left.
Killing of 2 Israeli embassy staff right in Washington, D.C. I mean, it was shocking,
It
absolutely.
really was. And, as the article we're looking at points out, it's maybe more than just a tragedy. It's kind of a marker, isn't it?
A marker of how danger itself is, well, changing, evolving in this super connected world we live in now.
Exactly. Diplomats, they've always faced risks. It's sort of part of the deal. But this incident and others like it,
Yeah?
they really seem to highlight a shift. The threats feel more complex now, more
Yeah.
unpredictable.
And that is exactly what we're diving into today, this whole challenging picture of diplomat safety, especially with, globalized extremism being what it is.
And we're drawing heavily from this really insightful article in the conversation.
That's right. It's titled Diplomat Safety in an Age of Globalized Extremism.
And our aim here really is to unpack what the article is saying. Look at how the threat's changing, where the existing protections maybe fall short.
Learn from the past a bit too, right? The article has examples.
Yes, definitely. And then look at what it suggests we could actually do moving forward. What are the potential solutions?
And definitely stick with us on this one because, look, this isn't just some niche topic for, policy experts.
Not at all.
Understanding this stuff is actually pretty crucial for getting a handle on global security, international relations. I mean, just making sense of the news cycle day to day.
And if you're, say, studying for civil services exams, maybe the UPSC, these kinds of topics are vital current affairs.
Absolutely. Or even if you just want to be, better informed about what's happening globally, this gives you really important context.
Okay, so where does the article start? It basically points out that traditionally the main worries for diplomat security were, well, clearer.
Right, like state actors, maybe big organized groups, that kind of thing.
Yeah, the kind of threats that the big international agreements like the Vienna Convention we'll get to were sort of set up to deal with.
But the article really argues that the dangers now are, well, they're slipperier, harder to pin down.
That's the core of it. What's especially tough now is this rise of lone wolf terrorism and also what the piece calls transnational radicalization.
And it's not happening in isolation. Digital media is like pouring fuel on the fire, isn't it?
Absolutely. Ideas, hate, calls for violence, they just leap across borders instantly. You can have a conflict happening thousands of miles away.
Right, and it sparks an attack somewhere completely different.
Precisely. There's this anecdote in the article that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
The author mentions being with an Israeli diplomat friend in Canberra. Australia seems pretty safe, right?
You'd think so, yeah.
They get back to her car, just a regular car, and she instinctively crouches down, checks underneath it for bombs.
Wow.
And when asked why, she just says, and this is a direct quote, "We are always at risk. Extremism never sleeps."
Chilling. That constant awareness, that personal vigilance. Even somewhere like Canberra.
It really paints a picture.
Oh.
And that terrible Washington, D.C. incident we started with,
Yeah.
it's just such a stark, tragic example of this new reality.
An alleged act of terrorism directly linked, it seems, to online radicalization.
Exactly. Amplified by a geopolitical conflict happening far away. Officials mentioned the Israeli-Palestinian context specifically.
Right. And the suspect allegedly chanting slogans about it. Now, the investigation's ongoing, obviously. We should stress that.
Of course. But it fits this pattern the article describes perfectly. This globalization of grievance, of hatred, leading to violence far from the source.
And it's not an isolated case, is it? The article brings up other examples.
Yeah, it reminds us of 2016, the assassination of Russia's ambassador to Turkey.
I remember that.
The attacker was shouting about the war in Syria. Again, that direct link, distant conflict, local attack on a diplomat.
And underneath all this, the article says, is the role of the internet. These online echo chambers, the sheer amount of hate speech.
It just amplifies everything. And it makes these threats incredibly hard for security agencies to even spot, let alone disrupt before something happens.
Because you're not dealing with a clear organization, are you? It's diffuse. It's this digitally fueled anger.
Which then begs the question, how are the traditional rules, the legal frameworks, meant to protect diplomats actually coping?
Well, the foundation, as the article explains, is the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations from 1961.
A cornerstone of international law, really. Articles 22 and 29 are the key ones here.
They basically say the host country has a duty to take appropriate steps to protect embassies and the people working there.
But, and this is the crucial point the article raises, what exactly does appropriate steps mean today in this threat landscape?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Because the convention was written, back in the Cold War era, pretty much. It was thinking about hostile governments, maybe organized mobs.
Things you could maybe see coming, in a way.
Right. It wasn't really designed for this scenario of an individual radicalizing themselves quietly online and then suddenly acting out.
The article gives a couple of examples to show this tension. Remember the mob storming the Bangladeshi consulate in India? Was that foreseeable in the legal sense? The article says the mob was apparently stirred up by nationalist stuff in the media.
Which is a very different kind of trigger than, say, getting intel about a known terrorist group planning something specific.
Yeah.
How do you define foreseeability there?
Exactly. And contrast that with Australia being cautious about sending its ambassador back to Ukraine after the invasion.
That's a classic state-on-state threat.
Yeah.
Right, a war zone. Direct military danger? The Vienna Convention fits that scenario much more clearly.
The lone online radicalized person, that's a whole different legal puzzle.
And the article makes another important point. This isn't just a problem for countries, right in the thick of major conflicts.
No, even places geographically far away aren't immune. Australia's own history shows that, according to the piece.
Distance helps, sure, but it's definitely not a guarantee. Australia's seen its share of politically motivated violence against diplomats, stemming from conflicts overseas.
Yeah, the article lists some quite sobering examples. Like back in 1980, the Turkish consul general and his bodyguard were assassinated in Sydney.
Suspected Armenian militants? Australia's first political assassination of a foreign official, apparently? And they were never caught.
And even earlier, during the Cold War, Yugoslav missions were targeted. There was a bombing in Sydney in '72.
Linked to diaspora nationalism, right? Croatian groups, I think. It shows how those old country tensions can just spill over.
And more recently, post 9/11, the article mentions a plot uncovered in Perth targeting Israeli buildings.
So across decades, different conflicts, different ideologies. The threat keeps evolving, keeps finding ways to manifest even far away.
So, okay, if the threats are changing so fast and the old rules are struggling to keep up, what can governments do? What does the article suggest?
Well, it outlines a few key areas. The first one is pretty obvious, maybe, but still crucial: intelligence sharing.
Right. Knowing about potential threats seems paramount, especially if diplomats are seen as maybe softer targets than heavily guarded buildings.
Absolutely. But the difficulty, as the article points out, is that intelligence agencies are often, reluctant to share their secrets.
Even domestically sometimes, let alone internationally.
Exactly. Things are apparently getting better in terms of domestic coordination in many countries, but international sharing is still complex. And the article is realistic. No system is ever going to be perfect. You can't catch everything.
The article also floats the idea maybe the Vienna Convention itself needs another look.
Yeah, it suggests maybe it's time for a discussion, possibly even updating it to meet these digital age challenges.
Which would inevitably pull in bigger debates, wouldn't it? Like how much cyber monitoring is acceptable? What about the role of tech companies?
Definitely. Since their platforms are often where this radicalization happens, it's all interconnected.
And then there's a final point the article makes, which I thought was really interesting. It's not just about physical security.
Not just walls and guards.
Right. It talks about building resilience, public resilience, institutional resilience.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
It's about fostering a culture, really, a society that understands why diplomacy is vital, why it needs protecting, and that just flat out rejects ideological violence.
So it's broader than just security measures. It's about the whole environment diplomats operate in.
Exactly, making that environment itself safer.
Okay, so if we pull all that together from this deep dive, the core message seems to be that diplomat safety is under, serious pressure.
Yeah, unprecedented pressure, maybe. Threats are unpredictable, they spread like wildfire online, they cross borders, and our old tools, legal and security, are struggling.
And understanding this, for you listening, it isn't just abstract. It really gives you crucial context for global security debates, for seeing how geopolitics plays out on the ground, how technology intersects with conflict.
It's valuable background, definitely. Whether you're tracking current events for exams like UPSC or just trying to be an informed citizen in a complex world.
And it circles back to that quote from the Israeli diplomat.
Extremism never sleeps, and the article's conclusion mirrors that. Our response, too, must be tireless.
So, building on that idea of response, of resilience, maybe the final thought to leave you with from this is this. In a world where extremist ideas can spread globally, instantly, online, how can we, as societies globally, nationally, even locally, build the kind of cultural and institutional strength needed to really protect diplomacy and push back against that hate?
That's a big question, definitely something to think about. And remember, this deep dive was based on insights from the article Diplomat Safety in an Age of Globalized Extremism in the conversation.
We really hope this discussion was useful. If you found it valuable, especially if you're keeping up with these issues for studies or general knowledge, please do hit like and subscribe. It helps us keep doing these deep dives.
And definitely leave your thoughts in the comments. Any questions, any ideas, maybe about the challenges of tackling online radicalization or how you could even begin to update international law for this era? We'd love to hear from you.